Good evening and welcome to the July 6, 2023 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. I'm Chris McFarland, Chairman of the Commission, and will be running tonight's meeting as we implement Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Cohasset Stormwater Management and Wetland Protection Bylaws. We'll be operating tonight's meeting using the Zoom platform and ask the public who wish to speak to either raise their hand and be acknowledged or to enter your questions, comments, or concerns into the chat box. Please include your name and address. Only those who do will be recognized. Present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission is our Town Conservation Agent, Charlotte Patel. I'll now take a roll call of commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Will Ashton.
Will Ashton, present.
Tom Bell.
Tom Bell, present.
Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan, present.
Eric Eisenhower. Eric, you muted. Come on.
Oh,
There
how's
you
that? Hey,
Perfect.
I'm here. Eric Eisenhower, present and accounted for.
Thank you. Chris McIntyre.
Chris McIntyre, present.
Chris McFarland, present. We have a quorum of 6, a full house tonight. We'll be taking votes via roll call with each commissioner answering yay, nay, or abstain. Our first order of business tonight is minutes for approval for April 27, 2023, May 25, 2023, and June 8, 2023. Were there any comments or concerns from those minutes? No, having heard no comments or concerns, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for April 27th, May 25th, and June 8th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, we'll quick roll call. Will Ashton? Will?
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell?
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower?
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Chris McIntyre?
Chris McIntyre, aye.
And Chris McFarland, aye. That vote, those votes pass 6-0-0. Our next item on the agenda is the reorganization of the commission. I'm going to postpone that to later in the evening so that we can go through our hearings and let the public go if they'd like to. Our first hearing this evening is new, so I need to read the public notice. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 6, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on the Zoom platform from the town of Cohasset for a request for determination of applicability, RDA 23-10 for Don and Barbara O'Neill to remove 12 dead and dying trees from their property at 12 Gammon Road. Okay.
Don, can you hear us?
Yeah, just can you hear me right now?
Yes.
All right.
Do you have anyone else on the call? Is it Dave who's your arborist?
Yes,
Okay,
Dave Donnelly.
okay. Trying to promote him. Oh, there he goes. Okay.
Okay.
And Dave, do you want to walk us through your proposal? I can pull up the site plan if that's easiest, if you want to talk about it or.
We could start it any which way you want, Charlotte.
Sure.
Thanks for having us tonight. I'm here with my wife, Barbara. And we met on site last week. We put the complete package together on the request for determination, the map of the vicinity of the trees, as well as photos. We also put together the cost estimate from Total Tree, Andrew Spalt. We have our arborist, Dave Donnelly, on site. And we filled out all the abutter information and gave you all the receipts related to that. Barbara and I bought this property in 2019. We went through permitting with the Conservation Commission, as well as the Building and Planning Committee back in 2019. Barbara and I grew up in town. We were fortunate to also have our kids grow up in the town and go through the school systems here and everything Cohasset has to offer. Our goal, we lived at 85 Jerusalem Road for a good period of time, which is the house above us. And this opportunity came, and we had a new build on the house, and we lived in the boathouse when COVID hit. And here we are today. The original house was razed, and we redid the structure and built a new home. Loving all what Cohasset and Little Harbor has to offer. And in that period, once we moved into the big house, extensive landscaping was handled by Sean Papish, did the layouts of the plantings, and Dave Donnelly from Arborscape handled all the install of the plantings. So we are here today to present the removal of the trees. It's probably the last thing that is related to the property. The trees seem to, die from the top down, and it's pretty significant when you look at the photos. So it's just to give you a little bit of roundabout who we are and the property at 22 Gammons Road here in Cohasset.
Thank you. Dave, do you want to give us a little insight into the state of the trees that are being requested to be removed?
So the trees to be removed, I was called in to assess the condition of the trees about a month ago. I'm not involved with the removal of the trees at all, just the assessment of the trees and the condition of the trees.
Okay.
All of the trees indicated on the plan are dead. So the condition of the trees is that they are now hazardous trees for the property, dwelling, and the people on the property. So basically, the assessment for the trees in question for removal are the trees are dead, and now they pose a threat. We have also identified declining trees on the property that we have come up with a plan to hopefully prevent any more loss of trees through some pruning and fertilization and additional watering to help the condition of the trees. But as far as the trees in question for removal, unfortunately, all those trees are dead and hazardous.
Okay, thank you. Charlotte, you want to show some pictures, please?
So I can walk the commission through the site. So that was one of the trees in the front that they're just going to prune. It's in the front island right in front of Gammons Road. So starting from that site plan from the left, from the right side of the property, these are some of the trees that they had an orange band when I went on site. So this one is leaning into the road over the power lines. We also did receive a letter of support from an abutter who was concerned about these trees and the safety to the road and his abutting property. So I just sent that to you guys before the meeting, but just to show the angle a little bit, the trees are leaning over the power lines. At least these two are. And these are along the right side of the property. I think one of them is on the property line, but I know, Don, you spoke to the neighbor who is okay with taking the tree down that's directly on the property line. This one's towards the back in this photo. So then
Correct.
this, so I think there's about, on the site plan, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 along the right property border. And I would say 4 of those 6 are in the floodplain. And then 2 of the 6, the ones closest to Gammons Road, those are in the 100-foot buffer. And then the rest of them are in the 50-foot buffer and partially in the riverfront. So these are the trees. These are the 4 trees behind the 2 closest to the road. And these are the ones that are just crossing the floodplain in the 50-foot buffer to the salt marsh and also in the riverfront. So it's these 4 here. And then I believe this one I think is on the property line. Was it this one, Don? This dual one?
Yes,
Yeah, so this is the one that directly on the property line. I think you said you've spoken to the abutter to take that one out.
that's correct.
And then, so those are the 6 along the right property side of the property. And then these are the trees that, as you can see from the picture, these are in the backyard, probably less than 20 feet, or probably less than even 15 or 10 feet from the salt marsh. And these ones are obviously the 50-foot buffer and in the riverfront and floodplain. I think there's about 3 or 4 of these in this area on the plan, and I can pull up the plan again so you guys can see it.
Charlotte, could you, unfortunately, I was not able to access the OneDrive.
Okay.
I cannot explain, but I was not able to review this. Could you go through and tell us what types of trees we're talking about here? The species of the tree and the, what I would call the disease level or mortality of the tree currently on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these are mostly oaks and maples, all completely dead. Not, I think there's one that was maybe 90% dead, but you said they were all dead. And do you know what diseases they had?
It's hard to determine with the state that they're in, if it was a disease, insect. More than likely, looking around the area at my visit, there's a lot of trees in that area in decline. There's been a lot of decline in various trees from drought over the last few years. So it could be a combination of drought, which generally can lead to disease or insects that will come in and finalize the tree. But the state of the trees is that they are just completely dead, unfortunately.
This looks pretty green.
That's what I said.
Dave, a good portion of these are in land subject to coastal storm flowage. If these are mostly oaks and maples, would that help their decline, or would that make everything worse? If because some of these are right up against the marsh. So would saltwater exposure have any effect on these?
It could, but given the fact that it would probably affect the trees more uniformly, where you'd have a whole section of the trees be affected. Whereas here it's trees throughout a larger area, and it's not all the trees, it's sporadic.
Yeah.
So it's probably hard to say, to pinpoint, to try to pinpoint one thing that took the trees down is probably not, with the state that they're in now, possible.
It's probably not exposure to salt water, because they look like they've been around for 50, 75 years exposed to salt water. So
More than likely not.
salt waters for these trees is nothing new, I don't think.
This actually shows most of the trees. If you guys can see the
Yeah.
orange flags around them. So these are the ones on the right side of the property that are, again, mostly within the 50-foot buffer, riverfront and floodplain. And then the 2 closest to the road that I showed you leaning over the utilities are in the 100-foot buffer outside of riverfront and floodplain. But as you can see, a lot of these are, no question, they're in the 50-foot buffer right up against the marsh. And then a lot of them are along the property line. And then this is the backyard, just to kind of show the reference of where it is to the salt marsh. And then these are the trees on the left side of the property that are closer to the home and the boathouse.
Yeah.
Also still in the 50-foot buffer, riverfront and floodplain. I think this one was just supposed to be pruned, this branch here, I think. Dave, I think you mentioned in your report that this larger branch maybe need to be taken off, but the tree can remain here. And then these are smaller trees, I think, that may or may not just be pruned, and correct me if I'm wrong. But then these two, hold on, getting there. These two right here with the orange bands, those are the ones closer to the boathouse, and those are proposed to be removed on the left side of the property.
And they're dead.
Yes.
That's the question, yeah.
Mhm.
So just back to the backstory. So this house was built when, in 2018 or 19? It was a
20.
brand new-
2020.
Oh, 2020, okay.
Yeah, we had, actually, I think it was when I first started in August 21, we had closed out a 2020 order of conditions and stormwater permit with the ongoing conditions, that we typically issue. But the tree work obviously was saved for a later date. So yeah, we recently closed out some permits a few years ago for this property.
Yeah.
And was there fill brought into the yard where that what we're looking at now, where these dead trees are? Like
No,
landscaping, was it created like to create a lawn?
there was very limited landscaping. The condition of the property was not that good. And when we went back and forth with conservation, at the end of the day, we settled on almost the exact same footprint
Yeah.
and positioning of the house. And with the trade-off of removing an asphalt driveway to make a pervious driveway to help those calculations work. So almost everything's the same except for a new house and a significant amount of landscaping and plantings.
Yeah, Chris, that was my first thought, was that it was a fill condition, but when you look at the base of all the trees that have died, you can see that there's still a good flare. So there's not a lot of fill around these trees. It's more of a, it's either a climate condition, a water condition, or a insect condition. So some things coming.
Yeah, at least on the, I think, just pulled it up quickly. This is the approved plan back from like 2020. Don't really see proposed grading. I think this is all existing, because otherwise it would be bold. Yeah.
I'd suggest that at least the ones that are close to the marsh probably have been poisoned with salt water. We've had a drought for the last 2 years.
Yep.
Water table is going to stay the same. And as that fresh water that sits on top of it is diminished because of the drought, salt water is going to replace it.
Mhm.
So these, their deeper roots probably tapped into brackish, if not full salt water.
Yeah.
The other ones, I don't know, but the ones that drove trees along close to the marsh there, that's probably what happened to them.
Mhm.
It's going to get worse before it gets better.
I don't know if that's good or bad for me.
Well, you're going to lose, I think you're going to lose more trees along the edge of the marsh there. To tell you the truth.
Right.
Unless we have, this year we've gotten plenty of rain. The remaining trees are probably enjoying it. They were probably sipping a bit of salt water themselves. Not good for them.
Right.
Looks like up until at least 2014, it was undeveloped. Is that correct? So I think it was just, whatever happened, those trees were existing, and I don't know what the condition they were in at that point, but looks like it was completely undeveloped. Was there another house that was there in 2020, or was it
There was a house.
There was original house on the property that we razed because of the condition of the house
Sorry,
itself.
address 22. My bad.
Yeah, the previous home was raised and this new one was constructed. I can try to look up the actual date of the original home. If you said 2014, I think there are multiple orders of condition that were previously issued for this property. But yeah, the newest house that you see in the photos was a 2020 order of conditions.
I can remember this project. I was on the Concom then, and we did a lot of toing and froing on this. We had to change the direction of the house and the what we were looking on in terms of the facing of the house on the marshland. Eventually, we came around, or the owners came around to building on the existing footprint. So there was not a lot of work done on the lawn itself and the surrounding land. All right. I don't think the death of the trees was due to excavation of roots or anything like that. Something happened which was probably unrelated to the construction of the house itself. So don't know.
These look like pretty tall trees. Do we know the height of each one of them?
What was the question, Tom?
I'm just wondering how tall they are and if one of them, which ones, if they fell, would actually hit a structure and which ones would fall short.
Probably 90% of them will hit the house. They're over 100 feet
Okay, yeah,
in height.
I measured off the from the bottoms of them, and
Yeah.
a lot of them are within 60 feet of your house, it looks like.
Or the road or the power line.
Yeah, or the boathouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one neighbor's house across the street that has real concern. As well as, access to the road. There's some disabilities in case of emergency for some of the people to get out in case there was an ambulance. There's some concern related to that.
Mhm.
So, Mr. O'Neill, I'm sure you've read our regulations and bylaws regarding removing trees, even dead ones, in the 50-foot buffer, and at least from my perspective, these probably do need to go down. But the other part of that is when they go down, they need to remain, the slash and the trunks need to remain within the buffer.
Does that mean, can you still grind the top of the roots down to the plane of the grass
Oh,
itself?
stumps, grind the stumps. Yeah, I don't think we speak to that, do we, Charlotte?
No,
No, we're okay with that.
Yeah. No, it's the tree itself, what's going to happen with it. The tree should stay within the 50-foot buffer zone once it's felled.
Well, this is an RDA, right?
yes,
So really, we're determining whether or not an NOI is required.
correct.
Yeah, right.
In my opinion, I think, yes. I think
Yeah.
that's been our stance in the past, so I think that yes, one is required, and I think we'd be looking for a mitigation plan, some replacement, especially for those, since I didn't realize this was a riverfront area until I looked at the plan, but all in the resource area, so.
I wonder how they arrived at that, Chris. It's a tidal creek, and when you look at the contours, there is no freshwater stream feeding this tidal creek. So I'm surprised that it's even deemed to be. It's not an ephemeral stream. It's a tidal creek. So I really wonder about that.
I mean, either way, there's a number of trees in the 50 and the 100, and so I think we'd be looking for some replacement plan.
Right.
So my opinion would be that yes, this is applicable, and that's how I would vote.
I'd agree with that.
And regarding the slash, we don't want it to end up in the salt marsh, correct?
No, I personally would say no to that, just because, those trees, if they go into the marsh, either from a storm or from being felled, it's going to kill the grass. We already got enough problems with salt marsh damage, so we don't want to create any more, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think the assessment of the trees is probably accurate based on photos. They look dead as pretty much as dead as can be, a lot of them anyways. So I think, they, the assessment that they pose a hazard is probably accurate, and I'd be willing to, go along with that, but I think, there, since it's in the resource area and, I'd want to see a replacement plan or a mitigation plan as we've gone with other similar.
And probably the lowest impact that can be, is feasible for leaving the material in the 50 without impacting the salt marsh. There's enough of them here, so this is it's gonna be a challenge, I think, to figure out how to leave that stuff there without making a mess somewhere here.
Well, we spoke extensively with Andrew Spalt, who's done work in this whole neighborhood, and they'd come in with cranes and take them out. So the disturbance to the salt marsh is very limited on their process. And we've seen them on the street and have dealt with them before. And as far as replacements, we're willing to replace a portion, whether it's 3 or 4 or 5 trees as needed. But the concern, just like everybody else is that moving the trees up the lawn a little bit, and which we don't have a significant amount of room to play with to try to get it out of that saltwater plain or what have you. The trees on the right side, as you can see, potentially down the road, as you mentioned, some more maybe dying behind that at some point in period of time, that their lifespan is and condition is run its course. And we've done everything to the property and even more by adding a lot more trees all the way around the property. If you visited the property and walked the property, to compared where it was in 2019, which was wasn't in the best condition, to put it very politely. And we've worked with the Conservation Commission, not only on this house, but also on our previous house at 85 Jerusalem Road, which is right above us, followed the order of conditions, removed invasive species, had the Phragmites taken care of, sprayed, that looked like they could use that again in the other property. But we've done everything accordingly, safely, and not to disturb the marsh areas, as well as the positioning and the back and forth. We went with the conservation, settling in on the existing footprint and removing the driveway as pervious, etc., with the landscape approval. So we've done a lot on not only this property, but the other property on the tree level.
Yep, understood. But the what you've done to date is to get you to date, and now we're looking kind of forward, which is the removal of trees and what has to be considered in doing that. I'm gonna just take a quick straw poll. Will and Kathy, are you in concurrence with Chris's and Tom's recommendation for this?
Yes, I'd require an NOI.
Yes, also.
All right.
Same opinion.
Okay, well, I think it's pretty clear then, that, and sorry, Eric, I didn't poll you, but I'm sure I know your opinion.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think that the consensus here is that that a NOI would be required prior to removal of the trees, and that NOI should have a mitigation plan attached to it, as well as some sort of a maintenance plan of how, you know, what's going to happen to the debris that's of tree that's going to be taken down and how it might be left on the site as kind of long-term biomass that would kind of fuel the area. Anyway, I'm gonna,
Sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
just have one remaining question. At least based off of, you know, after talking with Don and some abutters, I would say these two trees pictured here are the most immediate concern. Would the commission consider maybe splitting up some of the work through an RDA and then the rest of it through an NOI? We've done that recently for a Beechwood Street property, so I just wanted to pose this for now, just because this tree in particular, and then the second one behind it, those are the ones, at least that seem like they would go first, you know what I mean? Unless
They on
Dave
the street,
disagrees.
Are those on the street?
These are closest to the street, so I'll show you guys on the plan, but it's, these are the ones that are facing, Gammons Road. So it's these two right here.
Where is that?
I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but it's this one
No,
and then this one. But you have to draw.
it's in the upper right-hand corner.
Yep, these two.
And
So
they're
these are the
outside the 50.
Yes,
Yeah.
the red line is the 50-foot buffer. The rest of them are in the 50-foot buffer. And then the
well,
blue,
I don't know how we split that, Charlotte. I mean, it's either a positive or a negative determination on this.
Yeah.
The commission is leaning towards a positive determination.
yeah, what we did with the Beechwood Street property is we issued a -3 saying the two trees or one tree was allowed to be removed. All other trees on the proposed plan require a notice of intent and are not, you know, going to be removed under the RDA. So that's what we did, at least with the woman on Beechwood Street, because she was most concerned about one that was like leaning over her driveway, but she had a similar plan with multiple trees to be cut down. So we did allow her to take out one tree, but we said the rest of them, because they were in the 50-foot buffer, needed a notice of intent.
Charlotte, does the arborist confirm that these trees represent a significant danger to the Gammons Road and passing traffic?
I would second that question to Dave.
Yes, they would at this point.
Okay,
And-
thank
I was just gonna reiterate, those trees are close to the power lines also, correct?
Yes.
Which would be a good reason to take those out.
you. You lose some air conditioning. I suggest we go ahead with the proposal that you were just discussing, Chris.
Yeah, yeah, we can do it that way if everyone's in agreement to that. We good? Okay. Then I'm gonna make a motion to issue a -3 determination with the condition that the two trees that are most likely to cause damage to the power line may be removed at this time. The remaining trees would that fall within the 50-foot buffer would require a notice of intent in order to have those removed. And the notice of intent should have suggested mitigation as well as a plan to determine where and how much of the cut trees can be left on the property.
Exactly. The biomass, as you referred.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Having a motion and second, we'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 6-0-0. That's all we needed, right, Charlotte?
Oh, well, nope, never mind. Just kidding.
Yep.
No variance.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. I
Thank
think
you.
Thank you.
Our second hearing this evening is NOI 23-18 and Stormwater Permit 23-13 for 31-33-35 Elm Street to raise and rebuild. This was continued from June 22nd, 2023.
Yep. Good evening.
Hello.
How you doing? Brendan Sullivan, for the record, Brendan Sullivan with Merrill Associates, representing the owners of the property. I could share my screen. So we have gotten some comments from Charlotte, and actually we've also had some input from Brad Holmes. So this project before we were looking under the general provisions for a riverfront area, but this does qualify as a redevelopment under the riverfront area section, subsection 5. So it's, as they say in the act, it's notwithstanding the 5,000 or from your bylaws, the 1,000 square foot limited disturbance criteria. Because if most of the riverfront area is degraded on the site, so it qualifies as a redevelopment project. So those thresholds are pretty much mute at this point. So the changes from the plan, we have introduced a mitigation area down within the 50-foot buffer, most of the 50-foot buffer, and into some of the wooded area. Some of this tree line there is a tree line down here, but some of the understory, there's bare ground down there. That's why we have some of the mitigation area going into that. And I did send you a letter. The letter that I need to correct the letter, there is I estimated there was a net fill of about 45 cubic yards. I redid those numbers, and it looks like the net gain is about just over 70 cubic yards of fill. That's from the gaining of the flood storage from removal of the existing structure, and then the subsequent filling for the proposed back patio and supports of some of the structure in this area in the floodplain. If you remember here, elevation 9 is the floodplain. The walkout basement now is about elevation 7, and we're proposing our first floor at 20, our basement at elevation 11 with a patio in the back, and then a grading down in the backyard. So that's where most of, if not all of that fill is contributing from that. We did add added a little bit, enhanced a little bit the swale along the easterly boundary, and added a note as well to create a swale to protect the abutting property from runoff from this area. If you remember, we're taking down all the structure in this area, basically kind of more or less centering the new structure on the lot. So with that, I think that is about it at this point. Like I said, I know we have still some comments to between the holiday and everything else. We weren't able to respond to all of Charlotte's comments, and Brad Holmes also had some suggestions of notes and stuff to add to the plan as well, and even enhancing some of the mitigation area is not just a wetland seed mix, but maybe throw some add some shrubs and in that area as well.
So Brendan, I understand that that it's been degraded and that there's certain things that because of that kind of get waivers. But I'm not clear on the waiver that allows for the fill in the flood area. Because it's my understanding that the floodplain is kind of sacred because by filling in, and our bylaws clearly say if you fill into a floodplain, you have to mitigate somewhere else to allow for flood storage so that people downstream aren't affected. Now, there was a comment in your letter which said that this is tidal and therefore it's part of the harbor system, which has kind of unlimited storage capacity, but I'm not sure how that affects the floodplain. So can you explain that?
So yeah, so typically in a coastal flood area, the water level is not going to rise. If you, I mean, certainly if you filled in 5,000 cubic yards, something may happen, pushing the water off to a abutting property. But in a coastal situation, the sea level is going to rise to, the 100-year floodplain is going to rise to elevation 9. If you were to fill this entire property, it's still going to rise to elevation 9. It's not going to rise at all. When you get inland flooding, certainly, riverline flooding or a wetland, freshwater wetland. Now that's totally different because if you're going to fill on one side of a riverbank, you're going to push the floodwaters to the other side of the riverbank. You're going to narrow the thread of the river, and you're going to create flooding on the other side of the bank or upstream of that. So that's when compensatory storage comes into play. And so that's the only places I've done compensatory storage is when there is inland flooding areas.
But isn't this floodplain it's not just a storm condition on the harbor, but there's also James Brook this is James Brook that's running past this property, isn't it not, down to the harbor?
Yes, yep, James Brook is just west of this.
So
And-
so you're suggesting that at a low tide hurricane situation, you would have and I just used hurricane as a suggestion of a very strong storm. You're suggesting that the fresh water coming down James Brook doesn't need this floodplain area?
That is correct. According to the FEMA flood maps, the tidal influence is at the outlet of the James River, which is just a few hundred feet west of here. So
Sorry, go ahead.
the FEMA flood study, I'm pretty sure is the tidal influence goes to pretty much the end of the outlet of the culvert that runs through the center of town. And actually, even in the center of town, I think they say the 500-year flood is contained within that. So really the riverline influence is upstream of that, like up around probably Pleasant or Elm Street, up in that area.
Let me point out that there's a tidal control structure at the mouth of James Brook. And under a flood condition, were it also during a nor'easter, there would be that gate would be closed. So in fact, and this would be a freshwater flood condition, no longer influenced by the tide, because believe me, they're going to have that tide gate closed. So indeed, it would impact the neighbors. You are taking up freshwater storage here.
So they are going
If
to,
that were open to the oceanite, Mr. Sullivan, I would agree completely. Like if this were the Gulf River, you'd be absolutely right in your analysis. but you've got you've got a tide control structure at the mouth of James Brook, which changes the calculus completely.
So are they, if they close the tide gate, they're gonna flood the James Brook estuary and not the harbor? Are you saying
Imagine a situation where you've got a nor'easter and it's not during the winter and you've got several inches of rain. That fresh water is going to come down. We've just had a study done by Woods Hole Group about this. That fresh water is going to come down James Brook, and it poses a hazard to the town, flooding downtown actually. But you've got the tide gate closed because you also have a storm surge that you don't want coming up James Brook. So that under those conditions, you do have a situation where, yeah, you're right. You could put all the mass you want into, say, the cove, and it's not going to raise sea level. It's an infinite pool, right? So as soon as you close that tide gate, it's no longer connected to the tidal system. So this will impact. This will take some of the flood storage away when that tide gate is closed. And there are circumstances, we've already been told by Woods Hole Group that there are circumstances where that would absolutely have to be closed in the case of a hurricane or a nor'easter with a significant amount of rain behind it or with it.
and that gets above the FEMA flood, the 100-year floodplain?
Oh, their projections go well above 9 feet, but we're working with the FEMA floodplain number, 9 feet. That's the regulatory target we have to hit. My point is that you're taking up some flood storage here by adding fill into the floodplain. It's only tidal under non-storm conditions, non-flood conditions. But the whole point of the floodplain is to have storage during a flood.
Oh, of course. Of
Yeah,
course.
okay. So that storage then would be limited by what you're proposing because you're no longer tidal, that tide gate's closed. If you didn't have that structure there, you'd be absolutely right in your analysis. But I don't think you were, either you weren't aware that there's a tide control structure there or you didn't
Oh, no,
consider it.
I'm aware. I actually just thought it was flapper gates. I didn't think it was a weir that was adjusted.
No, it's not. It's got a tide gate that's run off a screw, the motor. So it's in fact, we had a problem in, what was it, 2018, where they went down there to try to close the gate or open it. I don't remember which it was, but they had no power there. So that's been rectified at this point. But nevertheless, they can control the amount of saltwater flooding that way. We have no control over the freshwater side of it.
Right.
There's nothing to stop that fresh water from coming down the James Brook watershed and flooding this whole area.
Okay, so maybe, I mean, I know we're gonna continue this anyway, but so maybe I guess some second thoughts on, maybe because the grade coming off the patio is about almost a 4.5 to 1. So I could tighten up those grades and I could possibly, underwear would taking up the Bitconk Drive in the backyard area here. Maybe some area in there, maybe lower that area to create some compensatory storage and maybe equal out these numbers. We'll get them as close as I can so that there's a net, so there's no net gain of fill in the floodplain.
Yeah, that may push you into the over to planning for the land alteration bylaw. I don't know, but that's something you need to consider as well. I think I watched the video of the first meeting here, and I would point out and maybe even agree with Eric that the solution that most people use here is to build on piers and not change the grade.
Well, I agree with that further down Elm Street when you get lower in elevation, where we are up here. I mean, downstream, the floodplain, elevation 9 comes almost out to the street, when you head down towards the harbor. here where, where most of the house, our proposed house, we'd like to be out of the floodplain, and that's kind of what we're proposing here.
Well, you can, you can raise the house out of the floodplain by putting it on piers. People do it all the time around here.
Right, but that would
Mr.
still
Ratz
require,
pointed
it would
out.
still require flood insurance and everything else too. We're trying to avoid that here at this point. This house as it is would not need flood insurance as designed, with the current
Right,
house
right.
would need flood insurance and is
Oh,
taking,
oh, re-
and is
is
taking
that
up
the
flood
case, that
storage.
if you raise it on piers, then you can't get flood insurance?
No, you still need flood insurance because the flood waters are hitting the piers.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
Yeah.
as per an elevation certificate, it would, you can't do a LOMA to get that out of the floodplain.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it seems like you've got to do some recalculation here. Redesign.
I just wanted to add one comment to that. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can do compensatory storage within the flood zone. You would have to lower something outside of the flood zone below level 9 for it to count as compensatory storage.
I don't believe that is the case. I think I've done it before where the compensatory flood storage is done. Now you can't do it above, obviously elevation 9. But as long as the compensatory flood storage is done below the, you're adding storage below the floodplain, then that, if you know what I'm saying, you can provide compensatory flood storage at elevation 6, but you don't
Right.
want to provide it at above elevation 8. You want to make sure that when the floodwaters come in, you're not, that you want to provide it you should provide it equally at every foot of gain in elevation. So we just be inviting more water in there quicker, but then rising faster after that. So,
Okay.
like Tom said, I have to do some recalculations and regrading, and see what I can come up with.
That'd be great. I think, and as you said, I believe there's some items that Charlotte had asked for you to take a look at as well, so. Can we look to continue this to July 20th? Does that give you enough time?
Yes, I think so.
All right,
Yep.
so let's continue this to July 20th. And hopefully you'll be able to present that to us at that time.
And Brendan, if it helps, I just sent you the Woods Hole presentation for our climate resiliency grant and sent you the link too. So feel free to share it with your colleagues. But that does have some really important eye-opening information, not just for the town of Cohasset, but for anybody else who does work here. But yeah, feel
Okay.
free to look at that too if it helps.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, we had 2 show cause hearings, both which were continued till July 20th at this time. So we're going to move on to certificates of compliance.
Yes, I do have a few people in the audience for 2 of them. Can I go a little bit out of order if that's okay
Sure.
on the list? Okay.
Sure.
So I'll start with 55 Gammon since we have the contractor and owner in the call. So this was a 2021 dock project. They have finished the work and I didn't find any major deviations other than a few that I'll just list out quickly right now. So the, sorry, I'm going to pull up the, let's see, I'll pull up the approved plan. So just so you guys are looking at it, it was a 160-foot long pier with a 6x8 overlook, gangway and float. The pier itself is just a couple feet shorter, so it was 157 feet as noted on the as-built. All the pilings for the most part are still the same. So the pier was just a little bit shorter. The portion of the pier, the overlook, was 1 foot longer than approved. We wanted it to be, I think it was, sorry, 8x8. So it was 6x9, but again, the pier was 3 feet shorter, so it's kind of like a 2 feet shorter overall. And other than that, no major deviations that I noted. The final elevation for the dock is still the same. The pilings are still built per plan. The orientation was still built per plan. And then we had a couple special conditions, which I'll read off quickly, that the applicant and the engineer have complied with. The first one was that the dock float needed to rest on a cradle to create 30 inches of separation between the top of the cradle and the bottom of the float. You can see it on the as-built and on the site photos that there is, a cradle that's built underneath the float. So that was done per plan. We did want the height width ratio per DMF's recommendations to be 1.5 to 1. So you can see that on the as-built and on site that they have complied with that. And then the maximum size of the overlook portion of the pier shall be 8 by 8. So again, it was 6 by 9. So it's just a little bit longer, but then again, the overall pier was 3 feet shorter than approved. So it's like a -2 difference. And then just to note too, the applicant also had recently gotten an RDA approved to remove these 2 trees that you can see right near the stairs. Those have been removed and we wanted a 2-to-1 replacement. So the applicant did also plant 5 eastern red cedars along the property border. So he has complied with the RDA as well. That doesn't need to be voted on. I just wanted to note it for the as-built site conditions. And then the total dock location is just a little bit closer to the property line, but it doesn't interfere with the 25-foot setback for DEP and the 20-foot setback for buildings. So that's a minor change. But other than that, no major deviations. I would recommend the standard no herbicides condition number 40 with the COC. And then, again, he had an RDA to do the plantings, but that was a separate submission. So I don't know if we need to put number 41 as an ongoing condition. Since that didn't have anything to do with the project at the time. But my larger concern, which I'll just note as kind of it's a further discussion topic. When I went on site to see the dock, the contractor has previously explained to me and to the commission that DEP has told him he cannot use wooden plywood boards to put down temporarily while they do the construction because it is considered fill. Anything that temporarily or permanently alters elevation is considered fill and needs a 401 water quality certification. So these are the trees that were planted as part of the RDA, just so you guys can see them. So as you can see in some of these photos, some of the areas here were already pretty sparse from the pre-construction photos and from some of the photos that the contractor sent. But as you can see, there is foot traffic. Hold on, I get to some of the photos. You can see the foot traffic along the pier. So, I've talked to Keith Wallow, the contractor, about this a handful of times. And again, he's informed me that DEP will not allow him to use the wooden boards without a 401 water quality. So my question to the commission, which is more of a bigger question, is maybe we can consider future BMPs to mitigate impact. And DEP is going to talk to CZM and send me some stuff. But I just kind of wanted to note this overall. And again, this area was sparse to begin with, but I do have concerns every time I go to these dock projects and I see the footprints in the marsh, and they're working at low tide as they should, but I thought the boards were even a better solution, even though you may need additional permitting because the boards are taken out at the end of each day. They're not left on site to kill the grass. Like they're just put down temporarily for some minor foot traffic to install the pilings, and then they usually work from the top down. So it might be worth a bigger discussion. But other than that, this site, did anyone else have any other questions?
Was it, the plan that you showed, was that an as-built or was that
That was the approved plan. I'll show you the as-built if that's easier.
We have in these dock projects like some sort of assessment after the fact or before and after, so if they have to restore the grass if they disturb it like that.
We do have a standard condition that the marsh, any damage to the resource areas needs to be addressed. But, usually the marsh, from what I've seen, at least with the board technique, does come back. I'm not sure about the foot traffic. It may take longer, but maybe that's something we can consider for future dock projects to kind of mitigate this if DEP is not going to allow the use of the boards without additional permitting. So that's just something to note for projects overall, but sorry, this is the as-built. So as you can see, it's just overall, same elevation, just a little bit shorter pier. Tad longer of a lookout just by 1 foot, and then everything else, same set of pilings and everything else.
Carla, we've had a number of these projects where we've objected to the people tromping around and stomping down on the marsh grasses, and we always came to the conclusion that they would build these by building them out. They wouldn't have to go onto the surface. Why are we not doing that here? Why are they actually in the marsh grass? Why don't they build this out as we've discussed in all the other projects?
I think they do that for the most part, and I can allow Keith
Where do the footprints come from if they're building out?
Yeah, I guess, Keith, I think that's a question to you. Can you kind of clarify that? I know you've explained this a few times, but can you give us a refresher for the commission?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm in a restaurant, so.
Bon appetit.
So, thank you. So we use the board method only because I've been building them this is my 18th year, and it eliminates all of this stuff. But DEP has come back and said, you can't use boards anymore. You have to just walk on the marsh and do whatever you're gonna do. Now, I fought with this DEP representative, and he finally came back to me and said, you need to not use the boards or we're not gonna approve this doc. So at that point, I said, fine, I won't use the boards. But it seems so counterproductive to me because they're supposed to be protecting the marsh the way I protect the marsh. And instead of doing so, they made me do something that didn't protect the marsh. So the answer to your question about building out, we do build out, but we still have to drive the pilings. So when we're driving the pilings, we still have to walk on the marsh. And that's why we have the plywood there, because we use a tripod so we don't bring machinery out there. And each one of the little legs that we move as we go along, we move the plywood with us. And then we make a path, and then at the end of the day, we pick them all up. In this case here, we couldn't. But I do have to defend myself, because if you look at the pre-pictures that I sent, you can see it's pretty drastically dead in that whole area where it's still bad right now. So I don't think we did as much damage as you're looking at on that marsh. I think it was already pretty much damaged before we got there. That's why I sent the pre-construction pictures.
Yes, thank you, Keith.
that
I did
help?
look at those. Yeah, I did look at those. I looked at my previous site visit photos. So there's definitely that area was sparse to begin with, but like I said, it's just a matter of the methodology. And I know DEP's told you one thing. I'm curious who the representative is. I may have talked to
Yeah, I'm
somebody.
sorry. I was supposed to text you or email that
That's
to you
okay.
yesterday. I
That's
didn't do it,
okay.
but I'll do it today.
No worries, that's okay. But
Charlotte, just so I understand, building out does not mean not walking on the marsh. Correct?
Correct.
It means that they're kind of minimizing by
they're
stepping. up.
minimizing,
Few
yes. So they still
planks
have
here and
to,
there.
yeah, they
I
still need the
didn't
foot
understand that.
traffic. Yep. To install the pilings, they still need a little bit of foot traffic, which they do during low tide. But once they have those pilings installed, then they work from, the developed portion out to put in the rest of the pier and the railings and everything else.
So
Charlotte,
just so
should
you
we
know
not
how
consider-
we build as opposed to everybody else. Once we have the pilings in place, we walk on the marsh one last time and second to last time, and we screw boards up to the bottom of the pilings, and we put boards across, or stanchions, or whatever you want to call them, so that we walk on those for the entire rest of the build. We don't walk on the marsh. When we're all done with the walkway, we have to walk on it one more time to take those boards out and take out the stanchions that we put in, or the pieces of wood in between that we walk on. So we literally only walk on the marsh when we're driving pilings. And that's why we use the plywood, because even at that one time, we're protecting the marsh by using the plywood, but they won't
Okay.
let us do it.
Keith, I wouldn't doubt your good intentions. I'm not sure whether we have the technology to achieve it. But Charlotte, should we not consider a marsh restoration program on the sides of the pier that have been trampled down and all that? I would think that would be appropriate. So irrespective of what damage they do to the marsh, in the end, the marsh is restored to its splendor.
Or the splendor.
Yeah.
Okay,
That would be-
let me choose another word. The marsh is restored to its natural condition.
Can you put those pictures up, Charlotte, so
Yeah.
they can see, or did they already see them all?
I'm not sure if every commissioner saw them, but I can pull them up.
Well, Charlotte, you said that that's one of our conditions, that it has to be restored.
I can read the condition, but yeah, at least for these dock projects so far, we haven't requested any sort of mitigation or restoration. But here, let me pull up the photos first so you can see them. Mine are covered in snow. Let me pull up Keith's.
I mean, even if the damage was already there, for allowing these docks in, they should, I think, similar to how, you know, tree removal requires mitigation, they should be restoring the areas alongside, I think.
Yeah,
Even if the damage wasn't done by the construction of the dock, they should be, I don't know if any of our other commissioners know how, you know, what how finicky this marsh grass is to plant, but it's like other grass, I don't think it's like a huge ask.
I think you put in plugs of this stuff.
Yeah, I think so too.
They are commercially available with specialist nurseries, aren't they, Tom?
And I'm pretty sure they are. They're doing a lot of that down in the North River.
Yeah.
So Charlotte, can you
Now you have
read,
a nice
can you read the
platform to
condition,
plug it
please?
yeah. So this is from our standard boilerplate. Any damage to wetland resource area as a result of the proposed work or any other activity shall be immediately mitigated and repaired. The applicant shall immediately notify this Conservation Commission of damages and intended repair plan. And then we have Straits Pond Little Harbor have additional protection measures for these sensitive areas. So it is a general condition that we put with every order of conditions. We didn't see any mitigation proposed for the alteration, even the temporary alteration of the salt marsh for this project. I don't think that was a part of the notice of intent. Usually with these dock projects, they just write the alteration for the pilings in the land under salt pond or land under ocean. And then any, some of them note temporary disturbance, but I think we should be considering that to look at NOIs consistently for temporary and permanent alteration to these salt marshes for the docks. And then, yeah, this is a template condition, but unfortunately, I don't think we've looked at this enough for dock projects when closing them out.
So I think from now on, before
Yeah.
any dock project starts, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to walk the
Yeah.
path and see what the condition is and document it, and then
Yep.
come back and document it after, and they're gonna have to
Yeah.
remediate it. But we
I agree.
also could have a condition that says, you know, if the area of salt marsh that the dock is passing over is showing signs of I don't know what the right word is, but it's showing failure, that the applicant needs to mitigate, you know, to enhance the marsh for 10 feet either side of the proposed
Yeah.
dock or something like that. And then then you have both things, and whether or not they do it or not, they have to fix the
No, I agree. I think for
But-
dock projects moving forward, I think this is something that we should be looking at more, especially, you know, if Keith and his team are not allowed to use wooden boards under the state permits. So we definitely should be considering this for dock projects moving forward, because, you know, we've seen a lot of dock projects and a good portion of them are all in Little Harbor. And at least from what I've seen with Keith's projects, when the boards were used prior to DEP telling him otherwise, I have seen the marsh grass come, you know, it's fine. The growth is fine. The coverage is fine. It's, you know, I've looked at before and after photos from my predecessor and from, you know, the final as-built. So I do have an example of one recently that we got, we cleared. It was 75 Border Street for the Tedeschi's. I think, Keith, that was when you also used the boards and the marsh grass came back. So maybe this is something to monitor. Maybe I can ask the owner for this property if we can maybe monitor it to see if the salt marsh comes back, maybe after a couple growing seasons, and then we can kind of we have a comparison. So and then moving forward for dock projects, we can request mitigation, and you know, I can document you know, the marsh before, during, and after construction.
Good
Keith,
idea.
how difficult is the permit for the temporary fill in the
I
marsh?
do, I don't have the answer to that question off the top of my head. I know it's a water study. Isn't that what is that right,
It's a
Charlotte? Is that what
401, yeah, it's a 401 water quality certification.
water quality. So I heard it's pretty expensive and it takes a while to do. And that's why usually it's not required. And it's never been an issue before this one, it's only one person from DEP too. I mean, I'm building 3 other docks right now and in different towns, and there was no specification saying I couldn't use them. It's just this one guy that was, he was mean. I don't know how else to put it. He was just,
Yeah.
he
Alright.
just insisted. And I
Yeah.
mean, if for him to say that I'm changing the elevation of the marsh, okay, we use 1/2-inch plywood, so it's going up a 1/2 inch while I'm walking on it, and then I take it off at the end of every day until the pilings are done. So, I mean, a 1/2 inch of elevation for, they call that fill. I think he's splitting hairs, but I think we, like I said, and you can think I'm being sincere or not being sincere, but I make my living on the marsh, so I care about it, and I make sure that I do things the way that they should be done.
Yeah.
And after 18 years, we've come up with this method, and the Tedeschi one is a perfect example. You can't even tell we were there pretty much right after we finished.
Yeah.
And now we got this one. But I think there was issues on this marsh well before I got there. But it would be nice to be able to sit with DEP and say, why are you refusing us to do this when we know that it works? We have proof that it works by photo and by actual jobs. And I would love to have that conversation with them. I just don't know if I can.
All right. Well,
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, I think,
thank you. We'll let Charlotte chase him down a little bit.
yeah, and
Okay,
Keith, yeah,
thank
if
you.
you can send me the name of the person, because I
I
spoke to
will.
probably a different one.
Okay.
And yeah, I have several contacts in waterways, so I'm curious who it was. But yeah, so I think moving forward, this is something that the commission should consider in terms of temporary alteration, the methodology, the final product, and whether or not we want mitigation for, if Keith is not allowed to use the boards under the state permits, then, we're going to have to consider mitigation moving forward for these projects.
Okay. But that's moving forward. So tonight,
Yeah.
I'm going to make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for NOI 21-32 at 55 Gammons Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, we'll take a roll call. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bill, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McTerra.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 6-0.
And that was with our standard no herbicides condition. So I'll just note that for each one.
Yes.
All right.
Always
Thank you,
standard.
Keith. We appreciate your time. And thank you, Bill. I know you're in the audience, so thank you for staying on.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You still have people and maybe they're.
Yes.
for a
So we
different
also
one?
have, I'll promote her, I think. So we have for 60 Hobart, there's actually 2 permits for this one. And Suzanne, you're welcome to stay in the audience. Otherwise, you can be promoted if you want. So I'll start with the earlier one. So this is NOI 21-23 and stormwater permit 21-26. So this was a small addition project. And I will just pull up the site plan photos so you guys can see them. I also have the as-built too. Sorry, one sec. So this was a small 600 square foot addition off of the expanding the garage. So I didn't note any major deviations for this project. They had a subsurface infiltration system in this section here between the house and the wetland. So that was all installed and connected per plan. The only minor deviations were the HVAC unit right here on the gravel base that was installed, but it's not within the 50, it's in just partially in the 100-foot buffer. And the pervious landing that was supposed to be behind the addition, where you see the change between the dark wood and the lighter wood, that was not built. But other than that, I found no major deviations with the stormwater permit or notice of intent for this project. And again, with a COC, I would recommend the standard number 40 and 41 with the no herbicides. And this one didn't have any proposed plantings, but the other one did. So we can do 40 and 41 standard for this one. And then for the NOI 2023, sorry, just skipping ahead here. This was a landscaping project with a pervious patio
You
sports.
mean
court.
2308, correct?
I'm sorry, 2308. Thank you. So this was a landscaping project with a pervious sports court patio with, small bluestone patio extensions and landscaping. So really I didn't see any major deviations here, except, they're just gonna put in, these planting beds were installed per plan, but they're just gonna put some plantings in there at some point when the weather's better. But other than that, the patio here with the fire pit was built per plan. This is the sports court patio. The fence, there was this fence here in the photo that it was supposed to be moved back, and it was as of, I think it was earlier this week. So they moved that portion of the fence back to the property line. The sports court was installed. And it's a pervious structure with a gravel base, as it was proposed to be pervious from the start, but it's only in the 100-foot buffer. So it wasn't installed, no work was installed in the 50. And then this is when I was here on site, but Suzanne did confirm and sent pictures that this portion of the fence was pushed back and the impervious asphalt here was all removed and replaced with dirt per plan. And the only deviations I would maybe note are just some of the planting changes. So a lot of these hydrangeas were already existing. They just relocated them when they were doing some of the bluestone patio extensions. So they just put them in slightly different places per plan and switched where they were planting some of the proposed native species, but these hydrangeas here were existing, so they just moved them. And Suzanne, just let me know if you have any additional thoughts on that. But the asters were installed. I don't think you did some of the summer sweep, but again, I think you kept most of your original plantings, so you weren't really changing too much. And then again, with a COC, I would just note that, the standard number 40 and 41 with no herbicides and the plantings have to survive. The only question I have for the commission is the property has an existing pool and the pool was not a part of the project, but we do have an order of conditions standard condition about BMPs for pools. So if you guys want to include that, it's condition number 52 for this permit in particular. But again, there was no work affiliated with the pool. It's just existing on site, but we can issue an ongoing condition for the pool if we wanted to. Does anyone else have questions or?
Okay. Good questions, no concerns?
Yep.
Make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for NOI 21-23, stormwater permit 21-26, and NOI 23-08 at 60 Hobart Lane. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and second, we'll take a roll call. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Bill, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 600. Thank you.
Chris, quick question. Did we want that pool as an ongoing condition, or do we just want the 40 and 41 standard ones?
Yes, put the pool in there as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll note it on the other. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay. Everyone's gone, so you can just keep going in order then, the 3A sewer improvement.
Yep. So 3A sewer, I'll just note that for this project overall, they were really good with updating me on and everybody, because I think they had to probably do that for their Mass DOT permit, but overall they were really good with updating me on construction. So I didn't have any major deviations that I found. And sorry, I'm pulling up the as-built real quick. But yeah, so they had previously, after we had issued an order of conditions, Mass DOT for their permits just had some minor changes, and one of them was the sewer line was moved entirely to the northern half of the road. So they have built everything per plan. This is the as-built. There's just a few pending items, and I'll defer to the commission if you guys are okay with a COC with, it's mostly some cleanup stuff. So there's one catch basin. You can see it. You can see it right here. There's a catch basin that still has a silt sack in it. So I just told them to take it out. They haven't, I don't think they've done it yet. And then one catch basin, which I can send a photo. I'll show you guys a photo of. They had to repave the road twice because Mass DOT was not satisfied with the initial paving. So when they redid it, they covered one of the catch basins with asphalt. So I told them you have to clean that up and restore it. So I don't know if we want to hold up a COC for that, but I'm just, I'm going to note to them that that's not done. I've already noted to them that's not done. They have not confirmed yet if the contractor has gone back and done it. Sorry, I'm trying to find my photo. And then the other one was, I just asked them to look at the rest of the catch basins. I walked 90% of the site and I didn't see any other catch basins that were clogged, but it was that one in front of Cohasset Imports that was covered. But other than that, no major deviations. They restored the site, they repaved the road, and they didn't have any proposed plantings, but I would just say for this COC, we should issue number 40 as an ongoing condition because it applies to the applicant. Mass Dot may or may not be exempt when they maintain the road, but the applicant specifically is not. So that's why I would put number 40 as a condition for COC. But the question is, do we want to wait for the catch basin to be cleaned out or issue it now?
I would suggest we wait.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, they never come back.
You're gonna
Yeah,
sell. it.
you'll have to tell the DPW they're doing them themselves because they'll never come back.
That works for me.
What is order conditions 44?
So, oh, sorry, number 40 is no herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, et cetera, in the resource area or the buffer zones. And then number 41 is the plantings must survive 3 full growing seasons or be replaced by the owner. So usually for most projects, we issue 40 and 41 as an ongoing condition. And then for any pool projects, we can issue condition 52. But yeah, for this one, I would just say the no herbicides one. But I'll tell them that we're not going to issue a COC until they clean out the catch basin. So I'll probably bring this one back for July 20th.
Okay.
What's do we have any authority like on salting? And that's like right against the wetlands. Do we have any like?
No.
I think if the applicant were to do it, potentially, but not for Mass Dot. Usually there's actually a lot of exemptions under the act, and our bylaws do have general exemptions about maintaining the existing lawfully located utilities and structures. So yeah, Mass Dot, MBTA, a handful of those organizations are unfortunately exempt in a lot of cases under the Wetlands Protection Act, with using chemicals, with doing what they have to do to maintain the road and the utilities. National Grid is also one of them, but they've also been really good with notifying me when they're about to do work. Oh, sorry, that was one thing I did want to note. National Grid did cut down 4 pine trees in the 50-foot buffer as a part of replacing the utility work. And so they did notify me properly before they did it. So if you see 4 trees removed on site right past Stop and Shop Plaza, that was National Grid, not the applicant. But yeah, unfortunately, those organizations have a lot of exemptions that they utilize to maintain the roads. But yeah, I'll hold off on a COC until that's done.
Okay.
All right, what's the last one? Howard Gleason? Okay.
Yep.
I don't see anyone in the audience, but this one was just a stormwater permit. So I'll pull up the as-built. So this was a raise and rebuild technically, even though it was new home construction. There was an abandoned home that they tore down and rebuilt. The garage was existing. So some of the deviations that I noted, and also just so that the commission's aware, for stormwater permits moving forward, I think I told you about this before, but I am enforcing our regulations starting now about recording long-term operation and maintenance plans before a COC is issued. However, I've run into some roadblocks with Land Court, and Land Court is holding up the long-term O&M plan being recorded for this property because they want something from town clerk confirming I'm authorized to sign on behalf of the commission. So until I get that from Land Court, unfortunately, this long-term O&M plan can't be recorded, but I think hopefully we can make an exception in this case, and we'll just list it as a condition with the COC. But yeah, just letting you guys know that for stormwater permits, they're recording the long-term O&M plans moving forward because no one enforced that before. So yeah, some of the deviations for the site, mostly minor in nature, except for one that I talked to Brendan about. So the subsurface infiltration systems were installed per plan in the same location, same design, with the exception that the splash pads, there was supposed to be a splash pad pointing, hold on, let me annotate, supposed to be a splash pad pointing in this direction for this southerly system, and then there's supposed to be one pointing in this direction for the northern one. They did not install those, but what they did was they put a overflow green grate on each of the systems. And I talked about this with Brendan on site for the final inspection, that this will actually be better because as you can see, it's channeling runoff down the driveway. And, you know, towards this way. So instead of creating a channel, what it's going to do is it already has large capacity to maintain the, you know, the runoff from the structures and from the home. So the overflow would really just kind of bubble up through those green grates and spread out across the lawn versus, you know, get pointed in a direction down the driveway or down the other side here. So Brendan didn't have any concerns. He said he redid the calculations and it didn't have a negative impact, but that's really the only change in regards to stormwater. The other changes were just, you know, these small retaining walls were built. The grading was supposed to go in this direction anyway, but they just kind of added these short retaining walls to kind of slope the runoff and stabilize the slope a little bit more. But other than that, the grading is still in the general direction per the proposed plan. And then they moved the patio from here to here. So other than that, the patio is slightly smaller. And then they had a landscaping plan. They didn't do some plantings in front of the patio, but then they planted a lot more along this border, and in this area where trees were cut down that were approved to be cut down. But other than that, other than the splash pads and slightly different, you know, grading pattern with the retaining walls, I don't have any other major deviations. I guess, does anyone else have any concerns? And are you guys okay with issuing a COC with the pending long-term O&M plan while I figure stuff out with Land Court? May have all sounded like a run-on sentence, so trying to go fast.
So, sorry, I'm just trying to understand the overflow.
Yeah, so I can show you guys pictures, but it's a green grate. And this is actually, I've seen this on other stormwater infiltration systems. I just don't see it as often as the splash pad and overflow pipes. So it's basically an overflow grate that's on top of the lawn. So it kind of just, if it does fill capacity, it will just kind of bubble up and flow out, spread out across the lawn versus, you know, being channeled to that one direction towards the.
Yeah.
Well, I mean.
And those are the O&M
Thank-
plans you're waiting for?
Yes.
I mean, you know, the difference here is, yes, it's going to bubble up and potentially spread out. It also potentially bubbles up and heads right to the neighbor's property as opposed to off to the right and down the driveway. And in the other case, it goes off to a flatter portion of land instead of bubbling up and going right to the neighbor's property. So, I mean, you know, Brendan, I'm sorry, but Brendan always has a story. It's always, oh, well, you know, this is better, whatever, but I don't buy it. I'm not buying it. I mean, the grades are such that this water is going to end up right on the neighbor's property before you can bat an eye. Because, you know, it happens when it's a major storm. So it's gonna, you know, it's not going the direction that was approved. And when I look at this, it seems to me that there was logic behind where the splash pads or discharge, whichever it was, it made sense. I mean, in the one to the left, you can see there's a swale that carries the water, you know, to a much flatter area of ground as opposed to where it's going to go, which is plan north, right towards, you know, whatever's there.
Yeah, this property is the one that's kind of like, so, yeah, there's all these empty lots, you know, these are the empty lots that we had dealt with for the person who was mowing in the, you know, the BVW and went a little heavier than he was supposed to. So this person, Mr. Hernans, he has these 3 lots here that right now are undeveloped, but that may or may not change in the future. But right now, yeah, so the runoff was supposed to go for the northerly system here. It was supposed to go in this direction, basically kind of almost in the same direction as the compass. And then for the southerly one, it was supposed to go actually almost point down the driveway.
Yeah.
But yeah, the driveway is obviously also very long, by the way. It goes, you know, the house is all the way up here, goes all the way down to Howard Gleason. So there is also, oh, sorry, one other minor deviation I noted, but again, I'm not concerned, is they did install a gravel infiltration trench on either side. Well, I don't even know if it's a trench. It's more just like gravel, you know, shoulders along either side of the driveway here. So that was another minor change. But yeah, if we want to see, do we want to see an updated report, I guess, Chris, for the change in the,
It's not a report. I mean, it's, you know, the numbers are gonna work out the same. The question
Yeah.
is, you know, did they just take the easy way out and just let the water go where they want it to go? That's all. I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
I can pull up the approved plan just so you guys can see it for reference. But I tried to draw it as best I could.
do you have a loci map for this? I'd like to see where this water is going. That's,
Sorry.
is this which house is this?
So this is the one that's really far up from Howard Gleason Road, just to give you the general locus here. But here, just to show you, the parcel is very long. So the house is up here and Howard Gleason Road is all the way down here. So the driveway goes slightly upgrade, you know, all the way up to the house. And then this is Howard Gleason Road. So there's definitely considerable difference in the, you know, where the road is versus where the house is. And all the houses along Howard Gleason, as you know, are like right along here, you know, close to the road, and the yacht club's right across the street. So this is one that's like, you know, in the woods, all the way up here.
Yeah.
And then these 3 empty parcels have mostly wetlands on them. But as I mentioned, may or may not change in the future. But yeah, this was the original design. So you can see this, the outflow pipe and splash pad here kind of pointing towards this ledge area down to the driveway. And then this one was supposed to almost actually go this way. So the runoff was kind of supposed to feed into this area and then go out this way. So channel, you know, runoff in that direction, in the northern direction.
Seems like a significant alteration, stormwater, like related change that. Did he ask you beforehand or just when he went to inspect?
So when I went to inspect them, the ports were just there. And usually what they do is they'll cut the pipe down to the grass once the grass is completely installed. So sometimes inspection ports are for the subsurface systems are usually like, you know, several inches above the ground. And then once the grass is fully established, then they'll cut down the pipe a little bit just so that it's somewhat level, so that you're not like hitting it with mowing the lawn. So when I was there, it was just the inspection ports, and Brendan did discuss with me what we could do is we can do the grate instead. But I said, did you redo the calculations? Are there any negative impacts to runoff or direction? And, you know, Brendan says no, and it's okay if you guys don't buy it, but at least he did chat about it with me before they did it. But I did note that it would be a deviation from the approved plan because the commission approved this plan. So, yeah, I guess, do you guys want to see anything from Brendan? Do we want to bring him in and have him explain it to us in more detail? Or, I don't know.
You know,
This is all what's on the plans.
Yeah. I don't know why they didn't do the splash pads and outflow pipe. They just didn't do it by the time the site was completely restored. So that's why Brendan suggested the grate. So I don't even know if they, it didn't seem like they consulted the engineer either. Before, you know, the site was restored. It is awkward when they put their stamp on the as-built though.
Well, I mean, it's quite possible, and you know, it's 2021. None of us are going to have recollection, but you know, we often talk about the point of discharge and what we think as far as its impact to neighboring properties. I mean, we did it on Forest Avenue last hearing. We did it on, you know, 2 other hearings in the last 2 months where we said, you know, this was an engineer only concerned about the numbers and not concerned about, you know, the fact that they're going to discharge a big volume of water right in a place that doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I mean, I think look, and I got Will's back. I mean, Will's got my back here, so I'm going for it. I think we should tell him that unless they can explain to us why it just doesn't matter in a way that actually can convince us, it seems to me that it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they should have put these points of discharge in, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So
I think we need to hear from, actually, let me see if he's in the audience. No, he's not. I thought, the applicant would be in the audience, but,
no,
yeah, so I think
I'm
what,
with
bring
you.
him back for the 20th, I guess, same as 3A.
Yep.
And I'll tell him to bring their,
and if he wants to comply by the 20th, would be much more receptive than just a explanation.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, if they can just put in the splash pads, I mean, like I said, it seems like, and I don't want to put words in Brendan's mouth, but we both got to the site around the same time when the work was already done. So it's not like
Yeah.
we had the ability to be like, well, why can't you put in the, it's not too late. You haven't finished final grading yet. They already put down the sod and everything else. And it was kind of just,
Oh.
we're staring at it and it's not done. So
Would you put that back up and
Yeah.
zoom out just a little bit?
the approved plan.
Yeah.
I know this is a headache to read, but is that good?
Yeah, I'm just trying to zoom out just a little bit more.
Yep.
That the addresses on this area are weird, and I'm just trying to, there's a whole bunch of houses here with kind of strangely shaped lots. And I think I've got the right one, but I'm not sure. I'm trying to look at how this impacts the neighbors, based on the contour lines, and
Mhm.
I don't have a positive idea on the shape of this lot. And of course, it's oriented at 90 degrees to what I'm looking at.
Right. Yeah, I can't find it either.
Yeah, it's really,
I can try to pull up the initial subcatchment maps and see if I can see anything there. Because they're supposed to submit those with stormwater permits. Let's see. Where is it?
Oh, Tom, you see that horseshoe shaped road coming off Howard Gleason? There's like a funky horseshoe. I can't, I'm just looking on my phone.
Their subcatchment maps don't really show direction. It's really just their CAD report or their HydroCAD report that shows the direction. This was from 2021, just to,
yeah, I thought I had it, but then when she backed out, the property lines don't quite match the geometry I'm seeing here.
Yeah, I think there's been more division since then. Like more subdivision since then.
Maybe, yeah. I know the abutting lots have definitely changed. This lot was, I think, it was all part of like either one or two older parcels, and it was split into multiple different parcels over the last, I think, couple decades. So yeah. This parcel-
Can you pull up Google Maps real fast?
Google? Yeah.
Charlotte, how is this related to, there's a house here that clearly has an oyster shell driveway of some sort and a big blocky house that then opens up onto, oh, I know which house that is. It's that one that opens into the cove between Windmill Hill and Whitehead, Windmill Point and Whitehead.
Wait, sorry, Tom, what was your question?
I'm just wondering how it relates to that big white box that somebody built that comes off of Howard Gleason Road. It's got an oyster shell driveway. It's white, bright white. Is that the
I think I know what you're
driveway?
talking about. I think
No, it couldn't be. It must be next door to that.
Yes, I think it is.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's right across from the yacht club, like the first driveway.
So,
If you follow
yeah, the yacht club is right here, and then Actually, this, the new owner, gentleman came to us, to repair the stone wall that's right in front here,
I'm sorry.
I'm way off.
This is the house we're looking at.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I think this is old. This is the original house. Yeah, and the garage. So Google isn't updated yet.
the site plan does something like that.
Yeah. Mass Mapper has their plot plan.
Oh, I can pull up Mass Mapper instead if that's easier.
It lines up better with the.
But that's where it is.
I have to go on like 10 different maps to look at things these days.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I think I've got it.
yeah, so
Yeah, there it
This
is.
this is a little bit more accurate, whether or not, I think when we looked at this, for this other, guys, RDA, these lots are different from the assessors, which is different from Google, which is different from, all these other sites, like they're not consistent. But yeah, so this, as you can see, this is the new house footprint, and it's not showing the garage, which is weird, but it, as you can see, the driveway does go all the way up. But yeah, this empty parcel, which is where the wetland is, and then these parcels up here, these are all undeveloped. So 102, 100, and 104. These are all just the
Oh,
weirdest.
it's that one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, these are like the weirdest shaped parcels I've ever seen, but none of these abutting parcels are developed yet. But the 151, which is all the way at the end of Howard Gleason Road, which is a much bigger parcel, that has the house. But all these are mostly wetlands.
There's also, Charlotte, there's also a road that runs through there.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, there's an easement. There's some sort of road easement, and I don't know how old that is.
We've all been down there yomping through the Phragmites, and that was about 2 years ago. That was another
Okay.
project that we had to battle this guy on.
Yeah, so there's some sort of existing easement. I don't know if it goes directly through the wetland and how long it's been there, but there's definitely an easement that goes through the wetland. I just don't know.
There's a road that runs from the tip there up to the house on the right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's
So
actually
like right around here. Yeah.
It's a paved road.
Oh, it is. Fun. Okay.
yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it sounds like we want to hold off on a COC, bring the
Yes.
engineer in, bring the applicant in, and just have them explain themselves and why they didn't do it and why they can't do it, or
Yeah, why they can't do it.
and
Well,
also, like I said,
When are they going to do it? Because they're not gonna, if they don't do it, they're not getting a COC.
well, it would be if they want to justify the change or do it. Either way, I'll give them a choice, but I'll say it sounds like the commission wants the original design. So they'll have to rip up some of that beautiful sod. Sorry.
It's just odd.
I know. Sorry, it's mostly
Not talking about
sarcasm.
tearing any structures down or
Yeah.
tearing asphalt out or anything here.
Yeah. I know I have nothing to do with this, but I will just note that sometimes these COCs are, I don't even know how to say it, pushed in regards to occupancy, because the building inspector, at least since I've been here, he does not issue a full occupancy until all other permits are closed. With the exception, the only exception we've made within the last year plus is plantings. Like if plantings are the only thing that's left because of a drought, because of, waiting to the next growing season, the building inspector seems to take that into account. But other than that, if anything else isn't installed per my permits or anybody else's permits, he has been not open to issuing a full occupancy. He doesn't even want to really do temporaries in a lot of cases anymore because people aren't complying with the conditions. They're just, either moving in without telling them or moving in and then not complying with the conditions. So I don't want to speak for him, but it sounds like, he's getting stricter with occupancy. So sometimes these COCs are, if I ever bring them to you guys and it looks incomplete, there's maybe a reason for it. I do have to process them in 21 days, but obviously you guys make the decision of whether or not you want to accept it or not. So, but yeah, that's fine. I'll tell them to come back on 7/20.
All right.
Yep. Okay, let's jump to reorganization of the commission.
I knew it was coming to this.
We're there.
So we have three officer appointments for the Conservation Commission. We have the chairman, the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. And we can either have nominations, or we could have if someone would like to throw their own hat in the ring, it's more than acceptable.
Well, I said I'd be chair.
Nominate,
I accept the nomination.
You've already thrown your hat in, Tom. I saw the email. Good hat.
Oh, wait, who nominates Tom for the record?
Chris McIntyre nominates Tom as chair.
Okay,
And I'll return the compliment. I'm gonna nominate Chris when the time comes for.
Okay,
so Chris McIntyre, you nominate
Do we
Tom.
have any other nominations for chair? Okay, then do we have a second for Tom as chair?
Second,
Having a motion and a second to promote Tom Bell to Chair of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
certainly.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0-0. Congratulations, Tom.
They're torching.
Yay.
Happy Chris.
And we have a
Congrats, Tom.
motion for Chris McIntyre to be the vice chair. Do we have any other anyone else who's interested, or any other
Anyone else want to
nominations?
be fed to the lions? No. Good.
Wait,
Kathy, do you want to be nominated?
No, thank you.
You're so nice about that.
so
Okay,
Tom, you were
I
motioning
will-
for Chris to be vice chair, or was that you,
Yeah,
Chris?
I will make, no, Chris
Motion for
McIntyre, and I'll second that.
Okay,
So having a motion in a second, we'll take a roll call. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Aye.
and Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0-0.
yay.
And we have to have a secretary. I think
will-
Kathy's been secretary for 10 years now, hasn't it been?
No, I've only been,
I'm just kidding.
no, but I'll nominate myself.
Oh,
If we can do
I'll
that,
save you the,
I'm just, unless
I'll
somebody really
nominate
wants
you.
to do it.
I second Kathy's.
I think the whole
self-nomination.
group is nominating you,
I
so,
third.
Okay,
and
I'll-
seconding.
Sure.
So,
This is me stepping up.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
So, I guess for the record, I'll just say, who wants to, I don't know if you can nominate yourself. I don't know if you can, but
that's fine.
Yeah,
Chris
I don't know either.
McIntyre nominated
Okay.
and Eric Eisenhower seconded. So we're gonna take
Okay.
a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
and Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0-0.
sorry,
Excellent.
who was
And
the
now we,
second? I'm sorry, I'm trying to write this down. Who was the second?
Eric seconded.
Eric, okay, yep, thank you.
And then we have a couple liaisons. Is that correct,
Yep.
Charlotte?
So, yeah, I've talked to town manager about this, and Tom, you know about one of them already. Apparently, there's no liaison position that exists for Harbor Committee. We've been voting people for a couple of years, and Tom awkwardly showed up to a meeting, and I think they said,
No, actually not.
no?
No, they're happy to have me. It's
Oh,
like-
good, okay.
No, I think it was somehow the town clerk got wind of it and
Oh,
told me that there is no liaison. I can't remember what the circumstances were exactly.
It's one of the few.
Harbor Committee was
committees
fine with me there.
It's one of the
wanted
few
me there.
committees where there should be a liaison with Concom.
Absolutely.
It's probably
Yeah.
most necessary.
That's what
Yeah.
I said.
I have to check into the process, but I would imagine if there has to be some sort of created position, I would just assume select board does it. So I'll follow up with town manager, but yeah, Tom, I never got an answer. I reached out and I haven't really heard back on what the process is. So maybe I'll talk to town clerk and see what they want, but yeah.
Well, Charlotte, the liaison was never like an official appointment or anything. It was just a volunteer position that someone on the board volunteered to try to keep up with what was going on by
Yeah.
another organization. So
Right.
I don't see how it actually needs approval by anyone.
Yeah, that's
Which-
what I don't know. So I'll talk to town clerk of like why she got, why she has
I'm
concerns
a
with it.
spy, not a liaison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay,
So
We can
let's,
still
let's,
nominate people.
let's
I'll
table,
be
let's
the
table
spy for the
Yeah,
liaisons
Sandy,
to-
do it.
I'll be the spy for the Sandy Beach Association.
oh, sorry, what was that?
Bye.
I'll liaison for the Sandy Beach Association.
Let's just appoint liaisons everywhere.
Charlotte, why don't we do this? Why don't we just table the liaisons until next hearing, and you can come up with a
Okay.
list if you would, and if anyone like Chris just did for liaison for Sandy Beach, because I don't think that was on your list as of today. So if anyone has an organization that they would like to be the liaison to, that would be great.
I would go back to Harbor for sure.
Yeah, I think it's great that you do, Tom.
So yeah, the four
Yeah.
that we, the
Lucky
four
to
we
have
did
you.
last year.
2
sorry.
o'clock,
stay with
2
the
o'clock, it was
CPC.
2 of us.
I will
Yeah.
stay with the CPC.
Okay, so yeah,
I
it was,
actually,
it was
I
open space.
am pretty busy with open spaces, so I can't actually probably do Sandy Beach, but I think someone's got to keep an eye on them.
They're gonna love that. So yeah, the four that we voted last year was open space, CPC, Harbor, and Turkey Hill. And
I'll
there's
do.
something going on with, yep, thank you, Kathy. There's something going on with like, the town manager is looking at all the boards and they're trying to like condense things apparently, because as you guys may or may not be aware, I think I told you before, there's a shortage of commissioners on boards. So this gets into the larger conversation of, do they have to dissolve any, combine any? So that's why these liaison positions are coming up too, because they mentioned, oh, Turkey Hill is not a real thing. I was like, no, it is. They meet once a year. It's like multiple people, but whether or not it's any sort of Cohasset affiliated committee, I don't know if that's the case. I think it's like a separate committee that's more obviously regional between Hingham and Cohasset and, the trustees. But, so the town is definitely trying to condense or focus on thinning out the list so that they don't have to recruit as many people. So yeah, I will get more information and we can table this all to July 20th.
That's a, come on, Tom or Eric, you know the name for this, where you solve something by getting rid of it instead of actually fixing the problem.
Make the problem go away.
Yeah, I mean,
Promotion by abolition, yeah.
they already got rid of the cemetery committee, which was really important, and then they got rid of the veterans, like memorial commission. It's like, God.
Yeah. And then they replaced it with a sidewalk commission that the Honorable Jay now is in charge of.
Yes, and they have no money and they have
Yeah,
no,
no sidewalks.
nice.
There's also a stormwater management committee before stormwater was, dumped on the Conservation Commission. There was a stormwater management committee. So yeah, that one was obviously disbanded. But anyway, okay, so I'll table
All right,
it.
we'll table that, but the actual officers have been appointed. Thank you very much, everyone, for your upcoming service.
Yay. Do we want to do orientation, guys? Passing of the baton?
Yep.
So, Chris McIntyre, I'm sorry to say that the meeting after this next one, you're in charge.
And that's all right. That's
Breaking you right in.
Wait, I thought this one started next year.
I'll send you the,
Starts
I'll
next
send you the
week.
script.
Wait, really?
qualification,
right.
qualification
Yeah.
under fire. That's good.
Well, anyone can be acting chair.
Throw me in.
So are we gonna
Right.
talk about term limits?
Yes, we
Oh,
have.
yes, 48 hour.
48 hour
Go
issue.
ahead.
So yeah, Eric, thank you for your email. And, does anybody did everyone read Eric's
Let me
email?
tell you, let
Yeah,
me tell you one
read
thing. I am so sick and tired about talking about term limits that don't exist. We don't have any term limits. There's nothing in writing, and we spend all of our time moaning and groaning about it. I think we should just officially abolish term limits and get on with life and deal with like every other commission in Cohasset.
second-
We are the only
second
one
that.
that had term limits.
Third that.
It's a ridiculous
Yeah.
thing, so.
Yeah,
That's my proposal.
especially given the fact that, there's difficulty filling roles if there's people willing
Yeah.
to stay on.
Yeah.
100% second that.
And I think Chris McFarland's email that we, the commission, select and nominate our own members. It's not up to the selectmen to
Absolutely.
put somebody on us. They simply ratify what we propose. So like that also means that we're responsible for recruiting somebody. I've been working on this. And I had a long talk with Mike Sardina, telling him how much we would appreciate his services, since he's a landscape architect. And Chris, if you're on your way out here in a year,
Mike would be a good man.
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
He'd be a
I nominate Chris McMarlin for associate commissioner. So, as soon as his chairmanship is over, start over. It's rebirth.
Oh, man.
I think the other interesting thing is that I was at a meeting a few years ago, and it turned out all the other heads of committees or commissions in Cohasset were astounded that we were the only ones that had term limits. They said, how can you get rid of your most experienced people? They can walk the plank. You're forcing yourself to start over again every 6 years and training people.
Well,
And they were pretty astounded with that, so.
I know everyone kind of knows the original intent of this policy, which was to get rid of certain people who had been on the board for a really long time, and it's nobody on this call. But at least from what I gathered, and I talked to town manager and to town council, this is just a policy. So this is internal with just our commission. It's not
Yeah.
approved by select board. It's not a bylaw. So we can choose to either stick with it, abolish it, change it. You know, there is language in that we modified in 2021, right before I started, that in the event that commissioners cannot be replaced, they can be extended for an additional term, a 3-year term, I think. So back in
A
2021.
1-year term.
A 1-year term, yeah, sorry. So you guys were considering at the time keeping people on. That's why Jay stayed on an extra year. And that's why Eric has agreed to stay on for an extra year, unless we want to abolish the whole term limit thing in general. But, so that's why that new policy was.
If you want to abolish me, I'm more than willing to be abolished, all right?
No.
Oh, no, this is to lock you in, Eric.
I didn't mean you, Eric. I meant the policy. But I guess, I know Chris McFarland, do you have thoughts about that? Because I know obviously,
I don't see, I would be careful about what language we use, because I don't want to seem discriminatory, but I would suggest that one's term limit ends when dementia sets in.
Oh, well, see you guys.
If you talk to my wife, I think I won last year. But tell me, can we not just strike all language concerning the 1 year and all that, and just get rid of
Go away
it?
all on its own. Just remove that.
You can remove the language, you can remove the policy, you can completely.
If we want to get rid of somebody, we give them the black dot. Just like,
Yeah.
we all agree on that. And
Oh, that's a good idea. Yes, that people can stay on as long as a supermajority wants them to stay on. How about that?
That's good. Whatever that is. I don't know what a super majority is.
Well, it's more, it would, in this case, I guess it would be 5, no, I guess 5 is all of us, so.
So I guess what I would recommend, since this didn't make it onto the agenda within the 48-hour period, we can chat about it, obviously, as we're doing right now, but what I can do is I can revise the policy language to include that supermajority, and then we can just vote on it. We voted on any changes to this policy through a public meeting, so I think we should just stick to that status quo, but I can just add that language and we can just change it and then just leave it at that, and then just move forward with, you can stay on unless the supermajority says otherwise.
And could you also add to that anyone who left within the last 14 months has to come back for another term?
I love that. They're gonna love that.
Just send Jay a text and tell him that we voted on it.
Yeah, and he can't get out of it.
Also, Trish did say that, things were really crazy at work, which is why she left, but she didn't seem completely not open to the fact that she could come back. So we could definitely keep tabs on Trish and see if she might be open to
Get a
that.
hold of her, Tom. Tom, it's your first job, your first assignment. Get
And,
Trish back.
Get Trish back.
Kathy, I know
Greta,
you've also been,
Not
Kathy's also
trailing,
been at work.
seeing how much work she's actually doing.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, that's okay. Sorry, I was gonna say, just to let you guys know, Kathy's also been working, networking and trying to recruit people too. Kathy, you said you had some nibbles, but not a bite yet?
Yeah, yeah, and one of the people she was a commissioner, I think like 15 years ago. All of them are just really busy with their work right now. They appreciate all the hard work and know all the hard work that This commission does, and they are, all three of them were, well, two of them for sure, were seriously considering it. Not right now, but maybe in a couple of years. And then I have two other people who didn't reply yet. They might be out of the country. But
Well,
Have you
thank you.
talked to the,
so there's this good possibility of maybe a couple of those people.
Great.
Mm.
have you talked, Charlotte, have you talked to anyone on the Cohasset Conservation Trust? Was anyone interested there? Because that's
By name,
a
we
parallel
didn't-
organization.
Oh, sorry, what was that, Eric?
That's a parallel organization. to
Yeah,
ours.
Unless anybody has any other connections, I've talked to 3 or 4 people from CCT and nobody wants to do it. They're either busy, scared, all the above. But yeah, I'll follow up with them because I email them every year and say, hey, do you know anybody? I talked to the trustees, no one lives in town. I thought someone from the golf course could be a potential candidate, but unfortunately he does not live in Cohasset, which he neglected to mention when he said, yeah, I'll do it. And then he came up to me later and said, sorry, I don't live in Cohasset. But yeah, I've talked to CCT, talked to trustees, talked to some people at golf course. I've tried to see if anybody has family members who are interested. Yeah, I'm trying, but yeah, I'm getting a no all around. And I did
Well-
email, Eric, I did email some people who are also on Turkey Hill Management Committee who were also previous commissioners, but I haven't heard back from them yet.
Well, you know, Will and Chris should be able to reach out to all their friends because we all know they do this just to get out of diaper duty for a night. And
It
so if
doesn't
you reach-
work.
You know, tell your friends that this is a
Oh,
great
you're
way to
right.
get out of a couple hours.
That is a good way to sell it. And
Yeah,
also, we
what's
do have
that
another
usually?
48-hour topic
to
for you
try.
guys.
Well, that's a good way to get younger.
My
Uh,
4-year-old
citizens
is
involved.
very
Yeah.
conservation.
I'm all in favor of younger commissioners, many
No.
younger commissioners.
This is, I don't want to open the can of worms unless you guys would like me to, but there's also the schools. That is an untapped resource I know nothing about. I'm not affiliated with the schools. Obviously, I work for town hall. I don't know if opening that will just explode, but I haven't asked anybody from the schools yet.
You're talking
There,
about students,
most of the people who
students?
work at the school can't afford to live in this town, so.
They're also probably on other committees and they might be too busy. Also, Tom,
Teachers.
I don't know why I haven't asked him yet, but do you think Jack Buckley is someone who would be interested or a good addition? Or I haven't asked him because I know he's obviously busy with his own organization, so I don't know.
Yeah, we could reach out to him.
Yeah, can ask. He may, he's already invested in certain grants and topics and ideas that he occasionally comes to me to, so, he could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll email him.
Okay.
But yeah,
Charlotte, do you have any
I'll-
updates for us?
I think Susan Bryant lives in town, doesn't she?
I was gonna ask that too, because she's also CSCR.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could just email them both and just be like, hey, you interested?
Yeah.
Okay,
And Charlotte, it's worth asking at the schools. I mean,
Sure.
I'd be surprised if you got like elementary teachers to do it because they're like really
Yeah.
busy, but maybe, high school teachers, science teacher might be interested, or it's worth
yeah,
asking.
I admit, the schools is like a very, it's a vast untapped resource that I try to stay out of in a lot of cases because I just don't have the bandwidth. But I definitely want to reach out to maybe some of the science teachers. I know
Yeah.
Jack Buckley's looped me in on some emails with science teachers, the principal. So maybe they may or may not be interested. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'll look into it. And then the last 48-hour topic, which I know, Eric, you emailed about too, 20-minute hearings. So I talked to town council. We can do it. Town council recommended that we keep it more as a policy instead of a hard, fast thing and cutting people off and risking, what I mean, appealing permits and stuff. So Tom, since you are now the new chair, if we wanted to, we could maybe add like a sentence or two into our opening statement to say the Conservation Commission will, be enforcing 20-minute hearing limits to the best of our ability. And, and we could come up with any set of conditions, like especially if the conversation's going nowhere, it's like, okay, we're cutting this off. But we can try to keep it more as maybe like a soft policy that we just maintain. And then I can try to be the timekeeper and interrupt people, I can, you know what I mean? So
How do we discourage people from telling us their history?
we can give them like 2 minutes. I know, Chris, you've already suggested that in the past, but we can say every presenter will get 2 minutes. And for public from the comments from the public, we can also give them a limit and say, you have 2 minutes, you have 3 minutes. I'm sure you guys have seen town meeting. I want to hire that moderator or take classes from him because he's very good at his job.
Yeah.
And he cuts people
He
off
is.
without sounding rude. So, you know, Tom and Chris, maybe we can chat about it and, see what kind of, because I think that'll be really attractive for recruiting commissioners because everybody knows our hearings go super late.
Yeah,
And we meet twice a month. It's a big commitment. So if we can say we're actively trying to make these meetings short, I think that'll be
Our
attractive
average
for
time
younger
has gone
people.
down a lot recently.
Was that Chris? Sorry.
Our average time of meeting has gone down quite a bit. I don't know if it's because of the summer, but.
Yeah, less
Everyone's in
hearings.
construction right
Yes.
now. Yeah.
We
the permitting
warn-
was really
we
heavy
should
this year.
warn people that some of their history may not be, nice seeing how they sprayed their Phragmites or something.
I was looking for you guys to say something about that.
Oh, I wanted to point something out. There have been, I read the Washington Post frequently, like daily. And there was an opinion piece about Roundup. And through that, I discovered that the Park Service has been using Roundup in the Great Smoky Mountains to control invasive species for, at this point, almost 10 years. And their scientists say there's no hope without it.
There's no what, Tom?
There's no hope of defeating invasive species without it.
oh,
And they do have specific protocols that they use, but we may be overly restrictive here in our 50-foot and 100-foot buffers about pesticides. I think we might think about having a special regulation of when they can be used and how they can be used.
Yeah.
We
I
don't want
think
to,
that.
open the door to, hey, yeah, no problem, you can use it anytime you want on anything you want. But if we're ever going to even start to make a dent against Asian bittersweet and
Japanese knotweed.
knotweed,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah, I
Phragmites,
yeah, I'd be open to
garlic
that.
mustard, whole thing.
especially if
I
we're
think
giving
all
that-
of us in that too. Every one of those plants is mentioned there. And the only way to do anything about it apparently is to use glyphosate.
So that's actually
think we ought to
something
think
that's,
about it.
it's on my list to revise in the regulations. And Eric, you've also previously mentioned that to me too. So I think what I'm going to do is, I know I've slowed down on this, but once I have a rough draft of the revised regulations, I think what we can do is obviously we'll talk to council. I'm going to invite the wetland scientists that we mostly work with to look at everything. I'm going to try and maybe consult some professionals without sending a bill to the town. So I think if we can come up with a specific set of standards as to when herbicides will only be allowed under a certain set of parameters, I think for one, I'm thinking notice of intent only, never an RDA. And it has to be for some sort of mitigation or restoration replication purpose with, like Tom, like if you have the stuff from Great Smoky Hills of what kind of BMPs they do, that would be great. Because a lot of this is targeted application, I think, instead of obviously just
Yes.
taking a sprayer.
And you're talking about,
If you drive around,
And who's applying it, I think is important too. I mean.
Yes, it has to be a licensed applicator who has the correct state permit. So you
If you
actually
drive
need to give
around
information on
Cohasset,
that.
if you
Yeah.
drive around Cohasset, you see patches of Japanese knotweed that have been zapped by herbicide. And they're all along the harbor, all right,
Mhm.
and Little Harbor. And you know very well, it's the DPW Cohasset that's out there with the spray cans. And when you call him, I asked Brian, what's going on? He said, I don't know anything about that. Nope, not me. Well,
Yeah.
someone's out there spraying, and you can see the devastation because it's total. All right, everything's turned brown, but there's a lot of it going on. All right, but we've seen this before with the Phragmites. It's not good enough just to say yes, you can use glyphosate. It's what afterwards. How do you keep the invasive species or different invasive species repopulating that area? Or are we committing ourselves to an ongoing program where once every 2
Yeah.
years we have to go in and use it?
Yeah, we have to have a strict maintenance plan as if, I think we should almost mirror it like BVW replication or where you are monitoring it for a series of years. And, whatever we, can maybe see what the standard quo is, status quo or whatever. But yeah, we definitely need to have conditions, performance standards, and monitoring if we were to put it in our regulations. And those can be the only sets of conditions that are allowed under our regulations. We would have to obviously, vote on it and have a public meeting about it. But yeah, so it is on my list. And if you
Charlotte,
guys
can
have
you,
any,
can you reach out to DEP and
Yeah.
see if we can have like a special meeting or something, or executive session of education, so we're not just voting on something we would,
Yeah.
we
Great.
don't know the whole
I'll,
thing about.
Because a
Well,
lot,
email
there's so
me.
many invasive plants right now and like, you don't want to just give carte blanche to all, invasive
Right.
plants. There's some that are way more ecologically detrimental than others and that they're, have
Mm.
Let's be
proven
clear, there are,
treatments for, like,
there are
Yeah,
hundreds of
definitely.
gallons of glyphosate used daily in Cohasset.
Yep.
The wetlands are a small portion of where the stuff's been banned. But you go to Cohasset Greenview, they got a wall of Roundup and glyphosate and all these other herbicides. So it's used extensively in the town, and we don't talk about that. We talk about the little wetland area that we're protecting. But the rest of the town is wide open for glyphosate, and I think it's extensively used, so.
especially by MassDOT and
Yes, that I
MBTA.
use it.
Yep.
I'm into my third year of my meadow, and it would be hopeless without it, because the bittersweet just comes up like crazy. And my application is with a pair of rubber gloves and a small sponge, and I grab it by the stem, straight glyphosate, no dilution, and just rub it up once. And it sometimes there's a small patch around it. If I catch a little bit of grass with it, of course that dies too, but it's spraying it is, I've lost a whole crop of tomatoes by getting a little careless with spraying it.
Well, yeah, you have to make sure the wind's going in the right direction, Tom.
Yeah, so spraying is bad news, but
Tell me, how many more meetings do we have with Chris McFarland in charge? Is this your last meeting, Chris, in charge?
Until next.
I
June.
passed
Yeah.
the
Or
baton.
does he have
I'm gonna
another
say
one?
goodnight and then I pass the baton.
Yeah, so now after this meeting, Tom will be chair and Chris will be.
I'm not going anywhere, but I'm just going to take a back seat.
Yeah, that's fine. But thank you for being chair, Chris, for all this time. I think we've all appreciated your
Yes.
guidance and your experience and your dedication to this board. So I do want to obviously.
second that.
You've
Yeah,
done a
thank
great
you.
job.
Good
Thank-
man.
thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
But yeah, so I guess 48-hour issues, yeah, I'll definitely reach out to DEP and I'll see if maybe they're open to an executive session. I don't know how to do executive session, but I'll look at that. And then, yeah, 20-minute hearing
Hey.
stuff, maybe Chris and Tom, we can maybe chat offline and see if we want to implement some sort of soft policy into our opening statement.
New Chris or old Chris?
Oh, sorry, Chris McIntyre, yes.
New-
New vice chair, new chair.
That's
The
the
new
Mick,
Chris.
the
You just
Mick
call him Nick.
instead of the Mac.
And let me just say, Chris McFarland, thank you so much for I think you and I have served together for 6 years, all right?
Yes,
And
we
will
have.
continue. We will continue, I
Yeah.
hope, right?
Yes, Eric, thank you as well. You guys are the
Don't worry about
most
that.
experienced commissioners, and we definitely appreciate you having your expertise on this board. Honestly, I don't think, wouldn't be a commission without all you guys, and that includes previous commissioners too, like Jay and Trish, who dedicated a lot of their time.
Yep.
You guys want me to save my updates and did anyone get?
I'd like to know what's going on with 10 Ocean Ledge.
And I'd like to know
Oh,
48 Windy Hill.
Hey, guys, I'm going to dinner.
Okay,
I'll leave
Okay.
it up to you, all right?
all right. Well, we'll
All
still
right,
have a
Eric.
quorum.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Eric.
night.
Hi,
Good
Derek.
night.
Night, Eric.
Your Ocean Ledge. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ten Ocean Ledge, they are in the midst of filing for a COC, but they're not done with the work. The house is up. They haven't paved the driveway yet. They still have to finish some of the infiltration along the driveway. I have been there this week and I need to see the as-built. According to the engineer, everything has been supposedly built per plan. But I've had some neighbors who are concerned about the riprap covering the catch basin. I just went out there. There's an existing catch basin that was along the driveway. there's a porta potty right now on top of it. And I have no proof of this, but it's been there for a while and I don't know what's happening in that catch basin, but I did witness yesterday and I told the contractor, this is not okay. Their landscaping crew, I'm almost 100% positive, was dumping silt sediment directly into the catch basin and they were using water buckets to wash everything away. I have a photo literally of a wheelbarrow that is dirty sitting right on top of a catch basin. And I was like, are you serious, bro? You know, that was my reaction. I was like, are you, they were supposed to have silt sacks in there that were there at the beginning of construction. I don't know when they were taken out. The landscaping crew is on the site now, so most of the heavy work on the house is all done. But it's just an issue of like, I mean, I basically caught them in the act this time, but I'm sure this goes on in town a lot and I don't know about it. You know what I mean? So I guess, does anyone have any concerns with that? Do we want to bring them in for a show cause or address it during the COC or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. They need to pay to have the town clean that catch basin out and unplug the line. I don't know what we do at the terminal end of it because flushing into States Pond is unacceptable.
yeah.
Yeah.
It goes down a series of catch basins before it gets to Straits Pond, but still, like, I mean, I have a photo I can show you guys, literally
Doesn't go
two guys
that far,
on site.
Charlotte.
And
Doesn't
Yeah.
go very far, a couple hundred feet, that's it.
Yeah.
In the
they
pond.
also, it was hard to talk to them because they said they didn't speak English, but I feel like they were listening when I was talking to the contractor. But I said, yeah, you guys obviously can't be doing that. You have to have silt sacks. You got to have, I mean, they had their erosion control barrier still on site, but I literally saw them like pouring water in a silty pool around the catch basin. So I was like, oh my God, okay. How long has this been going on? So yeah, I think I told the contractor it's a problem. But they are looking to file a COC in the next couple weeks. I told them I need to see final site stabilization. They planted grass seed in the front of the property, just not portions of the back. So the work isn't done. And I told them I need to see all three stormwater BMPs, final site stabilization and regrading to even entertain a COC. But yeah, I know the engineer's working on an as-built. He'll come back when everything's paved, but it just makes me kind of sad of like how many people are actually doing this behind my back. I can't
Yeah.
monitor them 24/7. Anyway, so that's 10 Ocean Ledge. 18 Dolan Lane, the applicant is actively working on installing the rain gardens. There's a minor change request, and Chris, I'll ask about installing some additional shrubs in the southerly. I'm sorry, that's the northern one, in front of the wetland. They want to shift it 20 feet south, which will actually be an improvement for stormwater, but I just want to make sure that we can maybe modify the rain garden a little bit. But other than that, the
You mentioned that
applicant,
there was erosion there.
there is erosion there. Yeah.
What's eroding? I haven't been over there.
So, so where the house is, right, closer to the driveway, there is a streak of dirt from where you can see erosion happening. So the site, has been, regraded and stabilized, but there's still that sharp slope change. And so what we talked about on site is shifting the rain garden 20 feet. I think that would be to the east, closer to the driveway so that it can catch that runoff a little bit more. And then Chris had a comment. I sent the minor change request to Chris, and Chris just said, yeah, let's see if we can amplify that rain garden a little bit more to not just be a grass swale. So I'm going to talk to Jeff Hassett about that. But other than that, the plantings, they planted everything except for one shrub. So they got to plant one more shrub, install the rain garden, pave the second half of the driveway, and restore the rest of the site, and they're almost done. So I know the applicant is obviously anxious to get it done, but we'll make sure that everything is done. And 4 to 8 Windy Hill, Kathy, I'm getting crickets from this person, but I have asked multiple times to have more erosion control that was taken out in front of Windy Hill for the longest time. I've been asking for weeks, and I think it's time to crank it up because I'm getting no response. I've left voicemails, I've sent emails. I told John Halen, my boss, who said that he would also talk to him. I don't know if John did, but I haven't heard a peep from the contractors. So violation notice slash cease and
That place is a
desist.
mess.
Yeah, it's a mess.
It's a
Are you
mess.
talking, I'm sorry, are you talking about both properties or?
Mostly the one on closest to the road. So I think that's number 4. So not the
Yeah.
one that's closer to you, like
Yeah.
uphill.
Yeah.
We do have an erosion control barrier that's along that rocky ledge, and it's been there for a long time. So that one is fine. But
Yeah.
the one in front of Windy Hill Road hasn't been there for months and I've been trying to get
Yeah,
a barrier in
yeah,
there.
I noticed
They're
that.
still not done. They're not, if they were just
I
doing
know.
landscaping like 258 North Main, I'd be like, okay, I'll let it go because you're stabilizing the site now. But
Yeah.
they're still doing stuff on the site, so time
Yeah.
to be mean. But yeah, that's it for construction updates. And then does anyone, I know I just sent it yesterday, but town council did review my changes. Do you guys want to go over that now or do you want me to just save it for the next meeting?
Next meeting.
Okay, and then the fee schedule, I'm gonna start revising this because just to give you guys a quick summary, long story short, engineers have been misfiling stormwater permits probably for a very long time because our fee schedule does not match our bylaw. Our fee schedule for stormwater specifically is split into 5 categories. Category 1 is administrative and anything else is a full stormwater permit. There have been engineers who have been filing under category 1, altering more than 5,000 square feet of land. I don't know how long, maybe since 2016 when it was revised. And I've been trying to explain to engineers, I was like, okay, the fee schedule is really just a guide, but if you're altering more than 5,000 square feet of land, it's a full stormwater permit and you have to go up to at least a category 2 or more. So I'm revising the fee schedule to have clearer category breakdowns. And then it also just begs the question, do we want to raise fees? I mean, the fee schedule was last revised in 2016. I don't really have a reference to go on other than maybe Dedham, who's stricter than we are. But I guess, do you guys want to raise fees? Because that does have to go through, I think, select board. So if we're just changing definitions, it's fine for us to just vote on it. But if we want to change and raise fees or modify fees, it does have to go through a more, bigger.
What are the fees being used for?
My salary.
Well, I know that. Well, in theory,
Um,
I just wonder if,
Is
I
there
mean-
application fees?
So yeah, there's local application fees and so for stormwater, it's all local fees and that goes into basically the general fund paying my salary and also for wetlands, there is actually a separate account. So we have 3 accounts for wetland stuff. We have actually, well, yeah, I'll get to it in a sec. So technically there's the state designated portion of a Wetlands Protection Act fee for each activity. So that portion is in a separate account and that is supposedly supposed to be used by me to utilize, for equipment, for materials, for whatever. I talked to the financial accounting group. Conversation did not go well, but that is supposed to, be there. And then everything else goes into basically the revolving fund. And we also have what's called 301 accounts, but those are generated for peer reviews only. And those are paid for obviously by the applicant. So you create an account every time there's a peer review and then you pay the peer reviewer through that account when the applicant gives us money. So stormwater and wetlands both have 301 accounts that just get closed out when they're done. And then stormwater is just the fees. And then the wetlands are the state portion of the fees and then the local portion of the fees. So we do collect fees for every.
Last time you shut, Charlotte, when were they shut last?
Oh, sorry, Tom, what was that?
When were these fees?
April 2016.
Why don't you look at the CPI and raise it by that much?
What's this? Sorry, dumb question.
Consumer price index. Just look at
Okay.
Just
The price index? Okay.
It's on it's a service of the federal government.
Yay.
Look
Okay.
at it up. Consumer price index, and they have a calculator there. You can put in the fee as it was in 2016,
Okay.
and then look at it at 2023
Actually, that's great.
and raise it by that much.
Good idea.
Perfect.
And that,
That's
I
fair.
think- Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, also, we really aren't charging that much if you think about it in comparison to building permits, which can be tens of thousands of dollars. Like we're only charging $750 for, administrative stormwater permits. We're only charging $1,000 for a construction of a new house, category 2, and then any developments are like $1,200
what
to
would it
$2,500.
take to change it to like a percentage based thing? So these giant houses pay more than, a
Yeah.
regular-
Yeah, that could be worth a good conversation depending on the square footage and alteration. Maybe we could group it by total alteration. So I'll do some research and I'll send it to you guys. But yeah, if we're gonna revise the fee schedule, you might as well, because it's been, 7 years? I can't do math right now. But yeah, so that's it. So if you guys are able to look at the order of conditions though, if you guys have any other conditions to add, now's the time. I did have a few pending comments for town council, but other than that, he added his edits and I added my edits. And so, definitely look at that and let me know if you guys agree, and maybe we can vote on it on the 20th and use it for orders moving forward.
Charlotte, on that, the OOC that you sent, and you said your edits were in red and
Yeah, so I know that's like
Blue.
misleading.
I
Sorry.
didn't see any red or blue.
Oh, you didn't? You didn't see the
No.
track edits?
No, I didn't. All I saw was yellow highlight for some.
If
I
you go
didn't
to when you open the Word document, Kathy, and you go to
Yeah.
the review tab, you go to track changes, and then you can see all changes. I'll try to send
Okay.
you screenshots.
Okay, maybe
Yeah,
I wasn't
sometimes when
looking.
it might be your computer settings sometimes, like maybe you're just viewing it. And also sometimes when you open track documents, they don't always have the same colors. At least mine do every time I open them, but for you guys, you
Okay.
may see two different colors. Yeah, most of the edits are mine, and then town council had different colors.
Okay.
So
I just opened the one document. Okay, so I need to delve deeper. Okay.
yeah, if you go to the review tab and you go to track
Review tab.
changes, you should be viewing all track changes or something. And then you can see my
Okay.
comments, you can see everyone's edits.
Okay, I didn't do that.
You might be on simple view. Simple view sometimes is default setting where it just shows like the
Probably
simplified.
what
Yeah, it doesn't show the track changes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, that's it for you guys. Anything else? I'm good.
Yeah, I have one other thing that I've been
Okay.
thinking about, and it's kind of related to my liaison ship with the open spaces, but we've been talking a lot about like a tree census and stuff.
Yes.
Mhm.
Ooh, I have an update for you.
And I'm, we have a grant we're eyeing to do like a tree survey or a tree census kind of for public trees. But I'm curious what it would take or how much effort it would take for us to have like just internally like a tree log or something of trees like as we go, just trees removed from the 50 or something like that over just to refer to, I think, as like a data set to use, for the town and for ourselves. But like, is that feasible or is that have any value?
I think backtracking might be really time consuming for me, but I could definitely do it.
Backtrack.
moving
I'm not
forward.
talking about backtracking. I'm talking about
Yeah.
going forward. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
going
like-
forward, I think if we could do a simple Excel sheet where it's like, month, year, and then property, the date, what trees removed, how many total, how many in the 100, how many in the 50. If we want to break it down by buffer zone, otherwise we can do how many in the resource area, and you might have to double count a lot of them because you have overlapping resource areas. So I guess it would depend on how you want to keep track. Do we want to just do the 50-foot buffer versus the 100, or do we want to try and
Yeah,
get a
it's
little bit more
just-
specific?
I just kind of thought of it today because I was looking at different
Yeah.
methods of doing a tree census for like
Mhm.
a town. There's a lot to it, and if we're gonna get a
There
group,
is.
we kind of have to
Yeah.
have a plan.
And Chris, I actually do have an update for you on that too, which I guess I can do as a 48-hour update. So I spoke to Montana and Cassandra. We're kind of like the three of us are planning, zoning, conservation. We're the ones who are trying to submit all the grants. So we talked about the Urban Community Forestry Challenge Grant. It's a 50-50 match grant. So a lot of it is going to depend on DPW and their staffing and feasibility. We can definitely do in-kind staffing hours to match for 50-50. And it's up to $40,000. So I reached out to them today, and the tree warden has to be involved in this grant. So I reached out to the tree warden, the tree staff, and DPW to see if they want to meet over the next week or the week after to discuss the feasibility of this grant. And I'll definitely keep you posted, because what I did was I CC'd town manager and I said there's a shared interest between multiple boards and departments, and even Wild Cohasset and nonprofits have expressed an interest in doing tree survey stuff. So there's definitely a shared interest. It's really just getting DPW's input, feasibility, their bandwidth. But I know personally the tree warden, who's Andy Swanson, and the foreman, who's Chris Murray, they've been getting very upset at obviously people cutting down trees on town property. They have a street tree policy that doesn't really have any teeth. They've asked me about bylaw stuff before. So hopefully they'll be, interested in doing this kind of grant if we do a tree assessment or a survey. But I'll definitely keep you guys posted, and I'll keep open space posted, because I think it's a shared interest that it has merit and we should look into it. But it is a hefty grant with a 50-50 match. So we'll see what DPW says, but I'm definitely interested to hear what the tree warden thinks, because Nobody likes people cutting down trees on town property without permission.
Yeah.
They're getting upset and it's, yeah. There was one recently, long story short, where somebody cut down 4 trees on town property when the town previously told them no. So that didn't sit well. Luckily not in the wetlands, but still didn't sit well.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I guess, Chris, do you still do motion to adjourn or does Tom have to do it now?
No, oh, Tom, you can practice if you'd like.
Oh, okay, motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second, third.
All right.
We're not gonna have a roll call vote.
okay.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Good
Thank
night.
you, everyone.
Good.
All right, Chris,
Good night.
thanks again for passing the torch. Tom, Chris, congrats. Have a good night,
Yep.
everyone.
All
Thank you,
right.
Charlotte.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
Charlotte.
See ya. Bye.